Hidden Object Guru here with a rundown of games I've checked out lately. As always, I'm going to be rating them based on how interested I am in playing the rest of the game. Mothergunship Forge VR. Mothergunship, like Tower of Guns before it, was a sadistic combination of elaborate gun turrets and brutal platforming. I adored both of them. Now, the developers have taken out the platforming and transformed Mothergunship into a static shooter. And it works perfectly. The game assumes the player has at least a few feet on either side of them, so they'll be able to bob and weave around languid fusillades of gunfire constantly coming their way. And yes, those who prefer to play seated will be able to use their control stick to maneuver around a very limited area. It's got nearly all of the features of the original game, which would make it incredible even without the immediacy playing it in VR brings. It's thrilling and challenging in equal measure, and I'm absolutely coming back to it as soon as I can. 8 out of 10. Bubbles and Pearls. This should have been a simple enough game to recommend. Bubbles rise, the player taps them to stay alive, and taps pearls to increase their score. It's an attractive enough environment to play in. The underwater map is sufficiently moody. There's just one problem. The bubbles move quickly enough that succeeding in the game requires the player to look down and see where the approaching bubbles are, so they can be ready to pop them. Now, maybe it's just me, but looking down with a headset strapped to my face starts straining my neck after just a couple of minutes. There's a reason that in Beat Saber-style games, the items come at you from the front. Hopefully, the developers of Bubbles and Pearls keep that in mind if they decide to make another game in this genre. 3 out of 10. Moss 2. There's a dream that exists in the minds of anyone who played with action figures as a child, and that's to see those figures hop to life and start acting out the fantasies that they use to animate them in their imaginations. It's a universal enough idea that it drove the creation of the entire Toy Story film franchise. One of the greatest feats of VR as a technology is that it has managed to make this dream a reality, offering games that let a player look down on a diorama world full of mobile miniatures, controlling the adventures that, until very recently, had existed only in their minds. One of the high points of this genre was Moss, which told the story of a sword-wielding mouse out to save her kingdom from hideous beasts and evil magic. Now Moss 2 is here, and it's a perfect continuation of the story. The action is fantastic, the environments are gorgeous, and the puzzles are delightfully accessible. This is as good as VR diorama games get, and not only will I be playing the rest of it, I'm recommending that everyone else do so as well. 9 out of 10. Rush VR. So, here's the thing. I'm terrified of heights. Whether you're talking ladders or skyscrapers, I have no interest in being near the top of anything taller than a pair of shoes. VR has always provided a relatively safe environment to test my ability to cope with these fears. What I've learned is that while I'm even horrified by heights in a virtual setting, I can appreciate the conceptual thrills offered by mountain climbing, skydiving, or in the case of Rush VR, doing the whole squirrel suit thing. The game is simple enough. Dive off of high things, race AI or real-life people, build up your boost, and zip through canyons and around mountains. The game incentivizes the player to fly in the most thrilling and dangerous manner possible, because it's only by getting extremely close to the ground or walls that you can build up the boost necessary to outspeed your opponents. It's the greatest compliment I can give the game, that playing it massively stressed me out, and I look forward to getting back to it as soon as I work up the nerve. 7 out of 10. Trigon Space Story. It's FTL, but with better graphics and a story. Do I really need to say more than that? FTL is one of my top 3 games ever in terms of playtime, so obviously more of it is always going to be a good thing. It feels just like FTL, which is all I need it to do. There's no chance I'm not going to be playing a ton more of this from now on, and you should too. 9 out of 10. Osiris New Dawn. A survival crafting game set on an extremely hostile alien world. Osiris is currently in early access, but it's already a pretty fantastic experience. The onboarding is stellar, exploring the bizarre new world is suitably foreboding, and it's incredibly easy to wind up dead under an alien sun, just as it's supposed to be. There's still plenty of bugs to be worked out. I had an issue where the game kept setting a bunch of items to autocraft instead of just building the single one I asked for, but that's a minor issue which I'm sure will be resolved quickly enough. Honestly, if I hadn't also played Fountain of Youth this week, I'd be calling this the most promising first-person open-world survival game I've played in ages. 7 out of 10. Fountain of Youth. Speaking of Fountain of Youth, it is actually the most promising first-person open-world survival game I've played in ages. The island looks gorgeous, the onboarding quests are easy to understand and complete, and the whole thing kicks off with a fantastic premise. The player is controlling a Spanish conquistador, shipwrecked while looking for the Fountain of Youth somewhere in an archipelago in the Caribbean. Every action in the game has a heft to it that's impressive for the genre. The survival mechanics feel plausible and are super easy to learn as well. As far as grounded survival games go, it manages the perfect mix of challenge and accessibility, and I can't wait to check out the finished version. 8 out of 10. Alien Shooter 2. New Era. It's more Alien Shooter! What more do you want? Well, probably a ton of story, but that might just be me. The inspiration behind my zombie game was literally, what if a Sigma Team game had just way too much story? Fun fact, I first downloaded Steam because it was the only way to get the hot new Sigma Team game, Alien Hallway. So it's safe to say that I've been down with the franchise essentially forever. Don't expect great graphics or innovative gameplay, this is just more levels to watch monsters exploding under a hail of gunfire. Just like with Trigon and FTL, I'm always happy to be playing another one of Sigma Team's shooters. 6 out of 10. Tower Princess. Knight's Trial. I've often talked about how one of my favorite phenomenons in game design is when a developer says, hey, they haven't made a game in Series X for a while, so I should just scrape off the serial numbers and do it myself. Sometimes we get a new Onimusha game about elves and unicorns. A lot of the time we get fake Silent Hills, not to mention the shocking volume of Castlevanias that indies turn out ever since Konami gave up on side-scrolling. Why do I bring this up? Because obviously someone got a little annoyed that we haven't had a decent Maximo game in roughly 20 years, and the result was Tower Princess, an in-development roguelite which currently has a demo. It's got a fantastic look, a cute sense of humor, and great level design. The only thing holding me back from being ridiculously enthusiastic about the game is a certain sluggishness to the combat. Maybe it's just an issue where I'll have to upgrade my character a few times before combat starts to feel smooth, but at the moment it's a bit of a slog. Absolutely not on the level of the exploration and puzzling that the rest of the game offers. Still, I'm very interested in seeing the final game when they're finished with it. 7 out of 10. Ricoh London. I'd remembered enjoying the first Ricoh game a couple of years ago, so of course I was going to check this one out. But I'm sad to report that the balance seems woefully off this time around. The premise is exactly the same. A series of enemies are holed up in randomized locations, and it's up to the player to take them down, either solo or in co-op with another player. Theoretically, the player has one advantage over the enemies. Anytime they breach a door, the world slows down, giving them a chance to assess and take down enemies before those enemies have a chance to respond. Except, it doesn't ever actually work like that. Every time I kicked down a door in the game, the enemies were already in mid-turn, and by the time I see how many people are in the room, I'm already getting shot. The element of surprise literally does not exist in this game, which is bad because that's the mechanic that the game is entirely built around. Why is this? The devs made the bizarre decision to start the slow-mo after the door is fully open, not the moment it's kicked, meaning that in literally every room, every enemy has the time to hear a sound and fully turn towards the door, weapons raised, before the player even has a chance to see them. Enemies literally have a crucial advantage over the player because of the thing that's supposed to be their superpower. Add to that the fact that enemies are not instantly killed by headshots, and that levels seem to drag on endlessly with no clue about where players are supposed to be going or what they're supposed to be doing. The result is a game that's essentially far too difficult to be worth bothering with, even in easy mode. Now I want to go back and check Ricoh out to see if my memories are rose-tinted and it actually had been terrible all along. Although probably not, because that had distinct levels with objectives, and this is just a randomly generated roguelike where you go through the same 4 rooms over and over again ad nauseum. Also, in the weirdest mistake I've seen in a while, the MP5 models all have their selector switches set to safe. 3 out of 10. Truck Repair, Dangerous Paths, Prologue. So, For literally years now, I've been saying that I love these vehicle repair games. I just wish that they had a narrative to go with the gameplay. And it's finally happened. One part rough driving game, one part repair adventure. Truck Mechanic Dangerous Paths has players drive down rough roads to deliver cargo, and pause to fix the damage that the environment does to their vehicle. From rewiring elevators to building makeshift ramps out of planks, every mile is an adventure, and I couldn't wait to see what the game next had in store for me. Honestly, I'd be giving this thing a 10 out of 10, will definitely play the full game, if I hadn't run into a critical problem right at the end, where I'd totally rebuilt a set of truck springs on the side of the road, only to be told that I had a bolt left over, and I couldn't get back on the road until it was back in place. After 10 minutes of looking, I gave up and just restarted. And I went back to the same location, I had the same problem with the truck, and I had the exact same issue with having a leftover bolt. We were basically at the end of the mission in a demo, so it wasn't like too much of a hassle to quit, but I really feel like they should add in some kind of a feature that highlights where a missing part is. Because if I actually missed reassembling it, that shouldn't have been possible, I should have been notified, and if it's a glitch, they really need to fix this. In any event, I am desperate to get my hands on the full game so I can find out what's going on with all the sabotage in this mining area, but I really hope they get this sorted out first. 7 out of 10. I've been the Hidden Object Guru, thanks for watching. As always, I'm going to remind you to pick up my game, HOGuru Presents The House with Too Many Zombies in It, so you can cruelly judge it for yourself. I'll see you back here for the next thing, but until then I'm going to say that's right. Au revoir.